Hello everyone, welcome back to the Project Race GP channel. This is our first race at Red Bull and it is at the Hungaroring. I hope you all enjoy. We're going to jump straight into qualifying 1 then in the brand new Red Bull, in which we signed to midway through the season, and I'm very happy that we were able to get this contract, because I alluded earlier in the season to wanting to win the championship this season, or at least be a contender, and we weren't developing the car enough at McLaren. The resource points weren't coming in quick enough, and the facilities weren't good enough. So with Red Bull, they've got, the best facilities, biggest resource point income, and to be fair, they were the only team that were willing to sign us. I tried Mercedes. I would have preferred to do it with Mercedes, but they didn't even enter contracts with us, and neither did Ferrari. But Red Bull did, and I guess maybe because we were a British team before, we go to just another British team. Maybe it's something to do with them wanting to get rid of Perez. I just don't know, but I'm not going to complain. We are here now, and the car feels unbelievably good to drive. It suits my driving style really well. As we come around the final corner in this Q1 lap, we lose it a teeny tiny little bit, but we still managed to go faster than Verstappen, in fact. Now this is qualifying 2, in which we have a wet weather, mixed condition qualifying, and this was ridiculously hard to get right. We come down into turn 1 for this qualifying lap, and you can see how treacherous the conditions are. I've had to be really careful on the throttle coming out of there. I would have been out into 5th a lot quicker in full dry conditions, and you'll see just how much the conditions change over the course of the lap. Right now the track is still pretty dry, but towards the end you'll see loads of puddles and stuff. It really gets wet around here really quick, or at least in this case it has anyway. You can already see some puddles starting to form there, and it's only been a matter of a few corners. So the conditions are changing unbelievably quickly. We get a bunch of oversteer, and that oversteer was kind of a signal to me to avoid as many of the curves as we can, because if we got onto the curves we can end up getting a bunch of wheel spin and putting it in a wall. I do take a few of the exit curves just because you can be a lot safer on those and get some time from maximising the exit, but you can see we're not touching any curbs around this final part of the track. We do mount that entry one ever so slightly, keeping it as tight as we can. You can see how long it's taking us to get onto the throttle, as we still get oversteer when we do get on the throttle, keeping it again really tight up into 5th, and that just shows how wet it was as we go into Q3. Full intermediate weather conditions now, and you can see in the bottom corner we've actually got a worn engine as well, so we are down on power in, I think it was 3 or 4 parts of the engine. So we need to make sure to change that at the end of this race weekend. You can see how much the braking distance has changed from dries to now, and how quickly we can get on the throttle and getting that into 5th. But the track still does feel really good, and it's not raining. This is all just standing water, which is why I've waited till the very end to go out, so that we will have the best conditions possible for our qualifying lap. And there is also a dry line that is appearing because of the runs from before, but we're doing very well on this qualifying lap. We managed to get a good run through the really tight chicane. Again, trying to miss as many curves as possible, but we can be a bit safer now, because it's the full intermediate conditions. We can be a lot more consistent. The conditions aren't changing, so we can send it a little bit harder than we otherwise would be. As we come down into really tight right hand. That was really difficult to get right in the wet, because you need to take some curb on entrance to be able to get as much time out of the corner as possible, but you really can't afford to do that, just like in the hairpin in the final corners, as we almost spin the car around from grazing the front. But we managed to get P4 as we go to the race, and it is raining and intermediate conditions with all 5 red lights, and they are out as we get a really good start out of 1st, but then get a lot of wheel spin going into 2nd and 3rd. We managed to put the power down though and overtake on into 5th. You can see the 2 Ferraris behind us going side by side. Looks like Leclerc Mike looked to our inside and we sent it down the inside of everyone in front. They all were going really slow. I could see that they were going to be really slow at the apex, so I decided to just send one. We've gone from 4th to 1st in one corner, which is absolutely outstanding. You can see Russell trying to go out the outside of Verstappen doesn't work, and now there is a 5 gap between us and our teammate, which is very surprising considering how good of a form Verstappen has been for this whole season as we get an extending track limits warning. The car really doesn't want to turn on some of these corners. I'm putting the power down, it's proving quite difficult. As you can see on almost every corner, we end up getting a lot of wheel spin, and the chicane is quite difficult as well because the car just kind of slides through if you take too much curb. There's a bit of a gap now between Russell and Hamilton. Maybe Hamilton's got a bit of damage as it's constantly getting bigger, the gap between those two. We've managed to almost get a 1 second gap between us and Verstappen. However, on all of the straights, everyone else is going to be a lot faster than us because the AI can tend to run a lot less downforce anyway, but we've also got an incredibly worn engine. We've made the 1 second gap now, coming into the final corner, which does dip down a bit into less than a second, but the point is we are outside of DRS if it was enabled, which is crucial because that means that Verstappen is barely going to be getting any slipstream, and we're having to use a lot of overtake just to try and get out of it. We managed to extend the gap by 7.2 seconds as we're coming into the pits because the conditions are dries now, although you can see a lot of puddles on the track. The rain has stopped for a good few laps already, and the tyres were really starting to overheat, so I figured it was the best time to come in, and everyone behind us as well, including Verstappen, so hopefully he doesn't get held up too much. A 2.4 second stop is really good as well, and we're planning to go to lap 17 and then jumping on some mediums. You can see how bad the engine wear is from that little screen just there. To get a bunch of wheel spin on exit because the Alonso behind us is going to go around our outside. No, he doesn't get there quick enough, so if we keep P2 and we've only got one car in front of us in Lando Norris, and because of the conditions right now we're going to be able to catch on to him very, very quickly. Although as you can see, Alonso still does have a moderate amount of grip, but you can really see the track drying up from our perspective as Alonso looks right inside, but he's not going to have the speed to send one down the inside, as it is about now where the dry compound tyres are going to be a lot faster than any intermediate tyres, as we're going to advance now to lap 11, as there was no action really, but our tyres were massively overheating, and I figured that I'd rather pit early and go onto a set of hards and be way more consistent and more confident with the cooler tyre temps, and that's exactly what we're doing. So pitting lap 11 rather than lap 17. So these hards are going to have to do an extra 7 laps than what would happen if we were on the mediums, as we come out onto lap 21, sorry, and everyone else in front is pitting. I've been feeling really, really good on these hard tyres. They feel amazing in these conditions. The tyre temps aren't too high, which means I can be quick, I can be confident around the track. Leclerc has been sticking with us on the mediums quite well, but he will also have to pit eventually as we come out in front of everyone, and I think that was a lot down to the soft stint we had. We were able to run away as soon as the conditions changed, and that's what allowed us to keep our massive lead and extend it possibly even further, because now it's a 6.4 second gap to Carlos Sainz, and they will have to try and get past Leclerc if they want to overtake me, who is on worn tyres. At this point in the race, as you can see, we're really able to chuck the car around. I was also conscious about fuel as well, because we did seem to be losing a lot ever since the conditions changed from wets to dries. We've been losing a lot of fuel, so we're going to have to watch out for that as we skip right to the last lap now, as no one was able to catch up to us. Leclerc was able to stay with us pretty nicely. You can see the top 5 was a bit odd because there was a big collision with all of the Mercedes and my teammate, who have dropped down now, which is unfortunate for them but good for us because it means we've had very little competition at the front. Or as I alluded to, Leclerc and Sainz have been able to stick with us pretty nicely, but we are going to be able to hold out right to the end. I'm just playing it really, really safe now, but using overtake at every opportunity just to make sure that the AI won't be close enough to send one, because we know what the AI are like. As we come through now, the final corner, the final hairpin, the final stretch before the finish line, and we finally get another win in Formula 1.
Thank you. Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I'll see you next for Spa. I'm really looking forward to it. That's one of my better ones. I'll see you all in the next one.